Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the DUNU Talos, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank Linsoul Audio for providing the DUNU Talos for review. To greatly appreciate it. Linsoul Audio, you rock. Okay, so the DUNU Talos. This will set you back about $200 on Linsoul's website, and it is a planar balanced armature hybrid. Currently, at the time of this recording, it is on sale for $20 off, coming in at $180. The DUNU Talos. This has a 14.6 millimeter planar driver and two balanced armatures, one for the high frequencies and another for the ultra high frequencies. Has a frequency response of 5 Hz to 40 kilohertz. Impedance is 16 ohms, sensitivity is 100 decibels, and it weighs roughly about 14 grams for each. You can use the Talos in either planar or hybrid mode, and hybrid mode is both the planar driver and the two BAs. Very uninspiring unboxing experience. So you get picture on the front, a little bit of information here on the back, and a little bit of branding on the sides. Taking off the sleeve, you just get a box with some very uninspiring inners. The accessories that you get a nice carrying case, a little bit large for a pocket, but nicely built. Protects well inside a bag. You're going to get a little cleaning tool, a nice 1/4-inch adapter, and then 3 sets of tips. And the tips are interesting. So you get your standard wide bore silicones, which are black, and then you get more narrow bore light gray, and then you get these super strange cylinder style, which are a lot longer but more narrow, and they're a little bit kind of in between the narrow and the wide bore in as far as opening. I preferred the black tip. We'll talk about that here in a moment. And then the other thing that's inside the box are the Talos themselves. Now, they're an interesting design, and I like the look of them. I think that they are attractive. I like the subtle gold and the little D in the middle here. And very nice cable. Well-controlled ear hooks. Nice and soft. Doesn't tangle or twist. And has a cinch that actually does what it's supposed to. Terminates into a 3.5. I like the cable. No qualms about the cable whatsoever. Do have some qualms about the Talos itself, though. It is a thick boy, very, very thick, and has a weird angle. And as thick as they are, they actually have a pretty short nozzle. And that's going to cause problems for fit for a lot of people. It's a somewhat of a flat, smooth backing. And they're heavy. As I said, they're 14 grams. So when you put them in your ears, they just kind of lodge there, and they're heavy, and so they kind of lean down. And I found that they put a lot of pressure on the ear hole. And the ear hooks do a good job of kind of keeping them in place, but depending on what tip you use, they may or may not put more pressure on it. I found that using the cylinder tips really put a ton of pressure on my ears, and they were just drooping down. The gray tips fit pretty well. Weren't the most comfortable, as they're kind of a little smushy. And these black ones, I have to use the small tip just in order to be able to fit them in my ear and hold them in place a little bit. are a little bit more comfortable than the gray, but they're still allowing the Talos to droop. And so comfort is to be desired for me with these. They're not as bad as the Stellaris, but they're still fairly uncomfortable because of their weight and their shape and design. Your experience may be different, but for me, I could only wear them for about half hour, 45 minutes before my ears were really aching for them to come out. And at times I would have a earache from weight to just like, pressure for a long time, sometimes hours before I could put them back in. It just felt like my ear was getting bruised because of the way it was being pulled. The Talos actually is fairly easy to drive for a planar IEM. I found it to be easy to drive with dongles, at least balanced dongles. Using them with the Hifi FC4 and the Heidi's XO and the Moondrop Dawn 4.4 and several other dongles that are balanced. They ran just fine, had no problems with it. With single-ended and lesser powered dongles, they did struggle just a little bit, and things sounded a little bloated and smeared and didn't really resolve extremely well. Moving up to DAPs, sounded just fine. Put them on high gain and it worked great. Same thing with desktops. They sounded fantastic. Had no issues whatsoever driving the Talos, one of the easier IEMs that have planars in them. Before we get into the sonics of the DUNU Talos, I would like to thank my supporters through YouTube memberships and Patreon. Thank you very much for all that you give back to the channel. Thank you for being willing to sacrifice of your personal funds to give to a channel that you enjoy and want to see continue. So thank you very much for all that you provide. Every fund that is given to the channel is used to go back into the channel to provide videos and to drink coffee while I'm doing the review. So thank you very much for all that you provide. It is much appreciated. Without you, this channel would struggle to continue. How do the DUNU Talos sound? The DUNU Talos have a very unique sound. And of course, you can use them planar or planar plus BA hybrid. And that is done by this little switch right here on the front. And that switch, actually, I have to give DUNU a credit, is very easy to switch with your finger. They did a good job of making it accessible, and you don't have to use some sort of little tool to pick at it to move it. You can do it with your finger. So thank you very much, DUNU, for making the switch easy. You can do it on the fly and have no issues. The review is going to be done in planar mode, and then we will touch on hybrid at the end. So how do the DUNU Talos sound? The DUNU Talos have a sound signature that is bass. The bass of the Talos extends well into the sub bass. There is a little bit of a rise and a little bit more presence in the sub bass than there is in the mid bass and upper bass. It does thin out as you go through the bass, but overall it just has a lightness to it. It doesn't have a lot of body weight, and it doesn't have a real significant punch and slam. Even though the quality is there, the quantity just isn't. It's just lacking. It doesn't really engage in the overall sound that is being reproduced. It does what it's supposed to as far as tonality and details, but it just doesn't drive it home. It doesn't have a lot of authority and a lot of impact, and it just kind of is ho-hum. I wish that there was more to the bass of the DUNU Talos. Tonality wise is good, has decent tone and timbre to it, and detail retrieval that it retrieves is good. It has a nice amount of quality of details retrieved, does a good job resolution wise. It just doesn't drive it home. The mids of the Talos are actually quite good. Now it is elevated in the upper mids. and it can at times become a little bit shouty. And in fact, on the Talos, I found that when I used the gray silicone tips and those cylinder tips, that they really became shouty. The wider bore black tips that are on them were my preferred sound because of the mids. It actually tamed the mids a little bit, and it wasn't as aggressive and shouty as it is with the other tip. I found that the mids have a naturalism to them, but just like the bass, they lack body. They are a very thin sound, and they just lack authority. They have good tonality to them, good tone and timbre, and the detail retrieval, again, was phenomenal. And the resolution was okay, but it just didn't really grip you and drive the vocals and instruments home. It just kind of went through the motions, and it had a lot of quality, not quantity. And then the treble. The treble is, how do we put it? Hot. It has a lot of treble, especially in the lower treble. If you're sensitive to treble, these are an IEM that you may want to shy away from. They are very forward and elevated, especially in the lower treble regions, and it has a briskness to it. It's like when you step outside for the first time in the fall and in winter, and that cold air just kind of whooshes in and catches you. That's the way that the treble is on the Talos. It's brisk, it's crisp, and it goes whoo, and it's going to catch you a little bit. And I find that it's just too much. If it was tamed down just a little bit, it would be better. Has very good extension, nice air, and all of that has all the qualities. It's just a little too brisk. Overall, I find that the bass, mids, and treble of the Talos play well. They're a little bit on the thin side. I wish they had more body and authority to them. And they have a tone that is pleasing. It just doesn't really drive things home and engage. Soundstage of the Talos. I find that the Talos has a nice soundstage. It has very good width to it. It sounds accurate. Placement is good. Things move across. There's no gaps or spaces or anything like that. Everything just flows together, and you can pick and choose and pinpoint and go, that's there, that's there. It's a very accurate sounding stage, imaging wise and width. Depth is a little bit limited. It doesn't have a lot of deepness to it. You can look into the stage a little bit, but you really can't look into a stage and diagnose it. And then layering is good. It has a nice amount of layers, and the instruments and vocals all play together, and you can pick each one out individually. So overall, I like the Talos, but I don't love the Talos. It's just kind of meh for me, and it misses on a few things. It misses on body weight and naturalism, and overall, it kind of lacks on detail resolution. Now, it does a phenomenal job of bringing in detail retrieval, but what it does retrieve, it's just okay for the price point when it comes to resolving. There are times of harshness and graininess, and it's just kind of a gritty sound, especially in the upper mids and treble regions. The Talos. When you hit that switch for the BA, it accentuates everything but the bass. So the bass kind of lacks impact and authority and power and body. And so all you're doing is elevating the mids and the treble, and it becomes uber bright and hot, excessive. It's like when you step outside for the first time on winter and it's a cold, brisk day, but then you add 40-mile-an-hour winds, and it just becomes too much. And on top of that, it's snowing or sleeting, and it's just, you don't want to be out in that weather. And so, yeah, the BA, no, not for me. How's it compare to a few of its competitors in the price point? So you've got the TINHIFI P1 Max. Now the TINHIFI P1 Max, it has more note weight. It has a more natural tone and timbre to it, and it is more even and natural and neutral sounding. It's not as boosted in the upper mids and in the treble, and overall the TINHIFI P1 Max sounds more correct and true. Is it as extended out? No. Is it as elevated and forward? No. But in my opinion, the P1 Max has the better bass because it has more body to it and note weight and has better authority. The mids are more even and cohesive and balanced and natural sounding, and then the treble is more accurate because it is not as elevated. And then you have the Shure S12. Now the S12 is elevated. It has more forward mids and treble, but it is better controlled and it has a more accurate tonality and timbre. Also, it has more note weight and authority, especially in the bass. You're going to get more impact, and just like the P1 Max, it sounds more alive and more engaging than the DUNU Talos. So the DUNU Talos, I like it, but it really isn't for me. And it's not a bad sounding planar, but it's not really anything to go home and put on your wish list, in my opinion. It's just different. But the differences that it does, in my opinion, aren't worth the price tag. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on the screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Then don't forget to check out all the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding how you contact the channel, follow the channel, support the channel. All that kind of stuff is down below. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. That way you'll know next time a video is out. And don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.